Sending it to
Mrs. Joyce, Mr. Conrad's absent. Oh. Well, guess he's sort of here.
You said we're a stage and very arm and a number of things and nothing. We do have registry so we've got first our the body on I have my current ready. Okay, and the grant was submitted Friday afternoon. I forwarded a copy to the mayor and Mr. O'Leary for the Ohio Attorney General for 6. Yes, I opted out and Fred Beverly opted out. And he retired from Cleveland 3 years ago, and a year before he retired, he was provided new body armor. So he's
okay, I mean, yeah, I remember, and I think it's in minutes that you said that every 4 years you're allowed to get a new set of body armor.
Yes.
In the grant.
Yes.
If it was, he's been retired 3 and they gave it to him the year before, why would he want to?
Because he only wore it. He's just now wearing it since Timberlake. He was retired from Cleveland for 3 years.
Okay, so it's sad.
Correct. And considering I just got mine, the guys chose to go with a different vendor other than Shutters. They went with Protect and Korea because Sergeant Goldman had contact there for Point Blank, which is what mine is. And it was much cheaper. So the total, expenditure before the 25% is $7,941.
Make sure that people with microphones are the speech.
Do you have any idea of how, when we might hear on the grant?
They responded as soon as I submitted it. They did respond with an automatic email saying, thank you for submitting. A notification with the award decision will be sent within 30 days.
That was last Friday.
So yes, June 14th. That has been done. Thursday will be 2 weeks. We bought 4 guns from Atwell's. We have them. We had to order ammunition and I let the mayor know, I let him have that. I forwarded the email to him as far as the quote for our ammunition. We have to have it before we can shoot. And I called them today. They told me the order would be 10 to 14 days to process and ship and get it out. When I talked to them today, they said it was leaving the warehouse, so it's probably going to be shipped tomorrow, Thursday at the latest. We have, it's the duty ammo for the rifles. It is the buckshot and the rifle slugs for the shotguns. We are depleted on our ammunition for shotguns. We have, we have a lot of ammo, practice ammo for the AR rifles, but we do not have, and there is no difference in duty ammo and practice ammo for the shotguns. We shoot buckshot as well as the rifle slugs, and we needed to replenish our stock. And that's what the no, it's reversed. We did not, several years ago, we were mandated to practice for. All I know is what was in the safe when I was promoted, and it's a lot of practice ammo for ARs. No, we're almost out, and and of course, because we didn't own ARs, we don't have duty ammo for the ARs, and we have to have that. And while we're on the subject of long guns, I did get a purchase order from the fiscal officer because we had to have cleaning rods, cleaning brushes, and everything. And then we bought what's called couplers, magazine couplers, to hold each AR rifle has 2 30-round magazines, and we bought the couplers to hold those together. They did. We made sure. I was concerned with the headliner, and we made sure they fit in the cars before we bought the guns. The ARs come with adjustable stock. It turns out that the Remington shotgun, for those of us with short arms, we don't need an adjustable stock because they are short. It's the same size that we bought Remington 870s. We bought Remington 870s, the same as what we used to have. So all the guys have always shot with Remington 870s. Yes, we did. And it's supposed to be shipped, I'm hoping, tomorrow. When I placed the order, she said it would be 10 to 14 days. And that was a week ago. And I did provide that to the mayor.
Ryan can hear everyone but the two of you.
It's just like, oh.
No, we just can't hear each other. Um. yeah. So I understand there was a disappointment in terms of scheduling the range in terms of availability, that it turned out to be impossible to meet the June 30th deadline.
Absolutely, because I was advised by Chief Deputy Izzo that their range is pretty much booked for the next 3 months.
Yeah,
So,
now I understand there is availability in August. What I've heard.
Well, I have
Maybe limited, but there's still some availability in August.
I was projecting that we shoot as soon as we get our ammo. There are other outdoor ranges that will allow us to use their range.
Okay.
I just have to provide an AR instructor and a shotgun instructor. And since we're all going to be on the range for both long guns, we might as well do handguns at the same time instead of waiting until December.
Okay, so where do you intend to have this done?
Well, I have 3 to pick from right now, so I'm kind of waiting. I can't tell them when we can be there until we have
You have the ammunition.
the ammunition. So it's kind of up in the air.
Now I also understand that, you don't necessarily have to use their range instructor, that you can use your own range instructor.
That is
And I
correct.
understand also that Lieutenant or Sergeant Dolben is a qualified shotgun range instructor.
That is correct.
Okay, you intend to use him.
It depends on his availability. I have 2 shotgun instructors. I have Okie Wise Roman and I have Sergeant Dolben.
Okay.
Both of them are shotgun instructors. Both of them are handgun instructors. Okie's full-time job encompasses range duty all the time. And again, it all depends on the ammunition and when we can get to a range as to who we can use.
Okay, does that mean that Sergeant Dolben
He does need, well, he's trained like we all are. He's trained handgun, shotgun, he's trained AR. But he's not an AR instructor. He's just a shotgun instructor. He has to qualify, which, he's done that at his other job, but I would like to have both of them there just for the expediency. So we use less range time. Oh,
actually done by Lake County? Then I know it's consistent with what other cities and villages and townships are doing in Lake County.
we all have to do the range qualification laid out by OPATA. It doesn't matter where we're at. It doesn't matter who our instructor is. We all have to follow OPATA's mandate.
Sharing. And the patient being
Your resolution said you request it to be done there. If I can get it done somewhere else without going there and waiting until August, I prefer to have it done now.
big town.
And it specifies that council, Your resolution says you request the chief to use Lake County. It does not mandate the chief. And as the chief, I can choose to use another range if we can get it done, preferably by June 30th, if our ammo comes in by then, and not wait until August. It is not up to council. It is up to the chief of police.
I'm going to prioritize June 30th for Lake County instruction and qualification. I would prioritize Lake County qualification to be primary. Yeah, June 30th thing, I don't think.
We don't have ammo.
We don't even have ammo. So I'm willing to, as a member of this committee and a member of council, I'm willing to forego that 230 thing in order for it to be done in the consistent way that I know to be done exactly the way as every other verb in Lake County is going to be done. I know that when they're qualified, they are going to be qualified.
The range that I have, the range that was volunteered for our use and the AR instructor is Spencer Police Department's range. And it's Michael Wright's son-in-law is a rifle instructor.
Again,
Why?
I know that cities,
Per Chief Deputy Izzo, they use the same qualification mandate, OPATA mandated qualification. What do you mean determine qualification? It's the range instructor that qualifies people. You're telling me that you don't trust Michael Wright's son-in-law as a range instructor? Who do you know in the county?
so sure, I trust him.
And I trust my conversation that I had with Chief Deputy Izzo, who said, as long as you follow the OPATA mandate for range qualification, you can qualify anywhere. And I agreed with him. And as long as I have an OPATA certified AR instructor and an OPATA certified shotgun instructor, we do not have to be qualified by Lake County Sheriff's Department. We are not part of their department. We are not part of their range. This is Timberlake Police Department, and it is up to the leadership of this police department to delegate who qualifies us and where we go. You are.
Hired. Not with- not from- qualified by who are in charge of patient handling. You're telling me that you don't.
I don't agree with it. No, I think we can go to any range that's available to us. Spencer has made their range available to us depending on when we get our ammo and what days we can shoot. And I have no problem with using Michael Wright's son-in-law for an AR instructor for range qualification. It does not have to be here in Lake County. Medina County. I don't see the importance of waiting till August to go to Lake County when there are other ranges out there that are just as good and other instructors. And it is up to the police department to have their officers trained. And on another level, not everybody needs the same level of training. Some of the guys are thoroughly trained in AR. Some of them are not. And why do we need to wait till August when I can get them qualified before then? What difference does it make? The sooner they're qualified, I can't put them in the cars.
But now, folks, you're taking the position that you want to get it done faster.
No,
That makes no sense.
no,
Makes no sense. It's so.
the urgency of council. No, it was council's urgency to get the guns in the cars. We bought the guns. We've ordered the ammo. There's no point in us waiting until August. It doesn't matter to me. You were the ones that watched the video and insisted that the guns be in the cars. I took them out of the cars because of the legality involved and the liability for this village. That is gone now. You have provided a resolution allowing the guns in the cars. We bought guns that we have proof of ownership of. Therefore, it goes back to the police department to train. It's not up to council for training for anything.
He said, before he went, he said, I might not be able to talk like audio, but I'll, he said that last.
Michael Wright. He's chief of Spencer Police Department, and it is his son-in-law who is a police officer and an AR instructor. He's not associated with Timberlake Police Department at all. He happens to be the son-in-law of Michael Wright.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question? This is more of a information gap that I'm personally missing here. So it's primarily for the chief, but anyone can answer if you know the answer. Whether we use Officer Dobin or the range instructor designated by Lake County or Michael Wright's son-in-law, is there any difference in cost in this? I was under the impression that everything at Lake County was free as long as we provide the ammo.
No, the range itself is free. Chief Deputy Izzo told me the range instructors have to be
Okay,
paid.
so the use of the range is free, so it's
Correct.
not like you're renting space, but
Correct.
you do have to pay for time.
Correct.
And that's, is there a difference in cost between using Dobin, their instructor, or Michael?
I
Reese?
didn't ask what their instructors would charge us because they have no availability. As I was told, we're pretty much booked for the next 3 months.
Okay, I yield.
And as far as cost, we have received a check from the state of Ohio for more than $3,000 that is supposed to be used specifically for training. We also have a training budget, so there should be no issue, no matter which instructor we pay, we're gonna pay somebody. No, we do not. He's not my only shotgun instructor. I don't know if they would just qualify us. I didn't. Lake County Sheriff's Department has mandated for their own people to have a 3-day training course for AR rifles. Not everybody needs that 3-day training course. And I don't know if we can just go there and qualify. I did not have that conversation with Chief Deputy Izzo, basically because he told me they were booked for the next 3 months. Well, and if you don't want to use a range that is outside of Lake County, there is a range in Madison. I haven't called them myself, but there is an outdoor range in Madison. And no, I don't. I'll have to ask Sergeant Dolben. They do. They're $250 a day. Or that's what they were 4 years ago. No. I don't know if they can shoot ARs inside that range. I can. I'm looking for ranges that don't charge anything. I know Eastlake has charged us $250 a day just for handgun qualification in the past. We have money to pay trainers. We do not have that money, that $3,000 from the state cannot pay for range rental. It has to be for trainers. It has to be for trainers. Unless John can specify if it can pay for a range. That is true.
But
I didn't ask them when I talked to Chief Deputy Izzo. My concern was the ARs. Because I know we can shoot shotguns at just about any outdoor range. CPD has a range, and I use their range, and it is an outdoor range.
they are. Slowly.
Right up the street. Mhm.
Things
Correct. I know the urgency was to buy the guns and get them in the cars. I am not prepared to wait until August when we can get them, get the guys qualified and get the guns in the cars. Maybe not by June 30th, but shortly thereafter. With all due respect, Jerry, council does not train, they do not control this police department. I am up. You can pass all the resolutions you want. I will fall back on Ohio Revised Code for training. and you want to go with Lake County Sheriff's Department, and I just finished telling you that per Chief Deputy Izzo, they have to go, anybody that uses their range has to go through their 3-day AR training class. I just talked to him Friday. I'll call him. He won't know. You can try, but he's not going to talk to you. He has told me that they will only communicate with law enforcement officials, not counsel. Mr. O'Leary can call them as our solicitor. Because if they mandate that 3-day training, that's, some guys need it, some guys don't. But we have a problem with personnel and covering this police department if I have 2 guys at a time in 3 days of training and then a day of qualification. I'm just telling you what I was told. We need to find out what they're going to charge for their range instructors as well. We do. But I don't know what. I've never been there. I don't know what it is. But Paynesville Range is a good ways away from here, let alone where all of us live. I'm worried about covering the training. I'm worried about having officers on duty here while we have people out there in training. And these are full training days. These aren't half days. So we have people that I can only go by what I was told. It will also have to depend on their availability to work us in after these 3 months that they are booked up. I don't know. I've had feedback from residents tell me that they see the white lights on the cars more often at night. They just have told me they've increased their patrols. I did not put out a memo mandating anything. We already do it once every 2 hours. All I said was increase your patrols. If you're out there an hour, like I do on day shift, then, you know, I leave it up to them. But I have heard the feedback that they are seeing more often. (2016) and 2018, and we've bought new batteries for them and we have new cartridges for them. They're good. No, the 5 years on the battery. And I replaced the batteries 2 years ago. Part what? I gave the mayor and Mr. O'Leary and John earlier today. I didn't realize until I printed out the paperwork for tonight's meeting that you're buying 4 radios instead of 5. So I reached out to the rep at Communication Services, and she provided me with an updated quote, cutting it down to 4. And that's what I did provide it to the mayor, but I printed it all out if you want copies of it. And it isn't just, I know the paperwork that I printed out for today's meeting just mentions buying 4 radios. But the quote is for the radios, the chargers, the console radios in the police cars, the installation of those, and 7 years worth of service and warranty. Oh, and we do have, we need to spend $404 before the end of this year to upgrade this portable, which is still covered by Motorola where our old ones are not, and the scanner that's in the office. They can be upgraded for the encryption, and this and that together are $404 or $202 each. However long these new radios we're getting will last as well. They have, they'll all be the same. Do you want these copies? This is the quote. The ORC that I refer to is for qualification for shotguns and ARs. I do not know that code number. It tells you what you have to do in order to qualify. I gave that to all of you when we had the safety committee meeting, when we had our first discussion about long guns. It tells you who has to be certified, what type of instructor we have to have. And up until about 4 years ago, OPATA mandated that whatever range instructor you use, they had to be an employee of the department. They no longer mandate that.
Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce. So the tax budget is an annual requirement. We have to file with the. No. No. Correct. So the tax budget is an annual requirement. It goes to the Lake County Auditor. I think it's required by July 15th. So in order to receive our local government fund allocation, we have to submit a tax budget, which is a really basic budget and lists the amount of property tax we require or request from the for the general fund for 2025, and then it has a breakdown of estimated revenues and expenses for 2025, along with a couple of years of history. So in 2025, we're requesting same amount from the Budget Commission as last year, which is $255,000. And Schedule B, that's filled out by the county auditor, and that will confirm the amount each of our levies will raise for 2025. Not next year. I think it's right. So yeah, there wouldn't be anything, yeah, till right. Right. So we're good until I think there's because we passed 3 of them recently, then the other 2 are the same year, and I think it's not next year, but I think they're up the year after, I believe. So so in 2025, again, this is like just a very basic breakdown of our general fund budget. And the revenues are on the conservative side again, like I've done in the past. So we're looking at total revenues 2025 of $657,500. That's comprised of $235,000 in property taxes, $43,000 homestead and rollback. Local government is around $48,000. That includes estimated 42,000 from the regular local government, and then there's a House Bill 64 local government. So that's about another $5,000 or $6,000. And then other revenues, which includes our 2% income tax, franchise taxes, and hall rentals, stuff like that. That estimated at $331,500. Total general fund operating expenditures in 2025 are estimated at $691,320. So we're projecting a deficit based on the conservative revenue numbers. My guess is that it will likely be a surplus again in 2025. And our estimated ending cash balance at the end of 25, based on these estimates, is $264,173. So 264 and change. And then the item on the back is our schedule of indebtedness, and this is just our 3 outstanding loans we have, and then the required principal and interest we need for 2025. So we have a outstanding street improvement bonds through 2026. Next year we'll pay $38,489 principal and interest on that one. Then there's the 2015 village-wide paving OPWC loan we have, and that's another $2,831, and that's only in principal. That's a 0 interest loan. And then in the middle there is a sanitary sewer, Ohio Water Development, I think OWDA. It's something like that. And that's a loan that we have through 2030 for our sanitary sewer improvements. And we pay $14,174 on principal and interest. And so they require the schedule of indebtedness so they can make sure that we have a minimum inside millage to at least meet the principal and interest payments on the debt. Yes, so that'll be retired in 2026. So hopefully we'll be able to save a few save some money for a few years for the next road project. Yeah. Right. So- Correct. So at the actual council meeting, council will have to take a vote on the tax budget for 2025. Yep. So that's all.
anything he wants it to be.
Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mrs. Mara, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Conrad is remote, so he's absent. Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mrs. Mara, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mrs. Mara, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mrs. Mara, Mr. Thompson. Thanks. Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mrs. Mara, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mrs. Mara, Mr. Thompson. This actually is good news. I know it doesn't look like it, but our tax revenues have been above estimates. So we actually need to increase money that is retained for the income tax retainer. So this retainer automatically comes out of our receipts that we get twice a month. Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mrs. Mara, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mrs. Mara, Mr. Thompson.
Is communication, no S on it, and it's services. The S goes on the end of services, just for clarification.
Right, this is American Rescue Plan Act funds that we still have available that we didn't spend yet. So this resolution is just stating the stating that we're going to allocate those funds for this particular purpose, which is allowable under the guidelines provided by the Treasury.
And the quote that I gave to Mrs. Joyce, I think it totals 26,000 and something. In the rescue funds, you're saying 2,200.
That's all we have.
In the paperwork that I gave you, Communication Services does provide financing, should you want to finance that other $4,000.
Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mrs. Mara, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mrs. Mara, Mr. Thompson.
he also attended that last meeting. He was pretty passionate about it in our lab. But I was committee meeting about a couple, two committee meetings ago, I also heard saying that might cut out halfway through the meeting, so we might want to get some IT. Right, follow up. But Ryan made it seem like we were kind of caught in like a dead end. We didn't really have a choice. A lot of them were like, don't pass this. Why would Menor pass it? Do they, because isn't there population technically in crime? It's not. I figured money would have gone more going to be that. Who's going to lose money on this is going to pass this because they're under the impression that if they don't, they lose even more money. He's been talking about this for months. For being in such a small community, he went to all those meetings and he's trying to make presentations, trying to get our voice heard. I know Mr. Conrad also went to a couple meetings, but it is appreciated. Thank you very much. I talked to you on the phone about, I got an hour of it.
I don't think that would be legal. As long as we fill out all the paperwork properly, there's really, you know.
And if it's going to pass, what ship are we going to be on? The sinking ship or the passing ship? Even though sometimes it's right to stand up for what you believe in and take a stand, sometimes it's better just to. Please. but
They didn't say. They just sent out the resolution. You don't have to. Right. To pass. Yeah. I believe so. I believe so, yes. I think you're right. We could check, but if you wanna read the, you wanna check?
every other
See.
committee table was before discussion.
See if I can find it.
Well, we already.
Right.
Put it up or down, and then even if you go down, you re-put it on, and then table it. But that, we'd still be voting it down. Then it means that's still a vote, right? But abstentions, those are the majority, so. Yeah. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
It sounds like you can put the motion on the table. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, so it says. Let's read the whole section here. As most motions laid on the table are merely temporarily laid aside, the majority should remember that the minority may all stay to the moment of final adjournment and then be in the majority and take up and pass the resolution laid on the table. So in other words, if some of you left and the majority present was still decided that they were in favor of taking it off the table, then they could vote on it. That's what that sounds like. Right, so it's basically, yeah, tabled, and unless somebody brought it off the table, it would always be tabled. Right. Believe so. It also sounds like if you wanted to, you could rescind the suspension of the rules. It says, well, under 25, well, rescind miscellaneous motion. When an assembly wishes to annul some action it has previously taken, and it is too late to reconsider the vote, so you voted on the suspension of the rules, the proper course to pursue is to rescind the objectionable resolution, order, or other proceeding. This motion has no privilege but stands on a footing with a new resolution. Any action of that body can be rescinded regardless of the time that has elapsed. Right, so you'd probably want to table it then. Yeah. That's what it sounds like, yes. That's what it sounds like.
when does this approval process take effect? So, right, but what I mean is, just when just enough communities vote in the affirmative that is needed, and then it automatically is passed? Right. So we have July. Is that correct? Okay, so we're not even meet till August. They want it by July. Is that not? Well,
Is it, a couple points before we end discussion, if we are going to. Um, the, first, well, the local government fund is just, just to be clear, is basically a bucket of different types of state revenue that go into this local government fund that then is distributed to the counties. So that's where the revenue comes from originally. And the other second point I wanted to, were you able to confirm that in order to actually get the amount for the statutory formula, they would need to conduct the need hearings? So like in order to actually estimate the statutory formula for each community, is it true that the auditor would actually need to have the need hearings to determine the amount? So therefore, he can't really give us an accurate estimate. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mrs. Mara, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mrs. Mara, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mrs. Mara, Mr. Thompson? Yes. Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mrs. Mara, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mrs. Mara, Mr. Thompson.
Also, office as well, so it's nice, it's a nice, nice to see people. Speaking of, huh? Very nice to see people cooking. I decline, but next time I'm gonna make you regret that offer. And Mr. Conrad couldn't be here tonight, but between last meeting and this, we had a grant committee. We gave very thorough presentation on everything that was going on. They sent a couple different grants and let's keep our fingers crossed that we're going to qualify for the playground grant. They did an excellent job keeping the communication with those people to learn new ways to improve our grant applications. So hopefully we get that. Great. Approximately even better. Other than that, as the mayor said, anyone who has any problem remembering my name, please strike that from. Anyway, that'll be all. Thanks.
So our general fund ending balance through May 31st is at $428,893. Our month-to-date revenue for May was $120,053 and change versus expenditures of $46,694 for a net surplus for the month of $73,359. Expenditures were about $5,733 less than expected, primarily due to lower than estimated expenses in miscellaneous areas like parks and recreation. So last year we had transferred some funds from the general fund to the playground construction fund, and I had estimated an additional transfer this year, which was not accurate. So that's why it was above what the estimate was, or less than the estimate. Our May 2024 revenue exceeded expectations by about $63,054, primarily due to a very robust income tax receipts. And our overall year-to-date revenue is about $47,639 higher than last year at this point. Income tax revenue is about $44,951 more than last year to date. Based on current estimated spending rates and stable revenue throughout the rest of the year, we are now estimating a surplus for the general fund this year of around $124,359 without any additions to our capital funds. With an addition of $15,000 to the police cruiser capital fund at the end of fiscal year 2024, we would be looking at an estimated surplus of $109,359. And note, this is based on no significant income tax refunds, which occasionally happens, or other unexpected events. Other significant fund activity and miscellaneous. We paid our biannual payment to CNB Bank, which is the parent company of Erie Bank, for our 2015 and 2016 street improvements in the amount of $20,119. And this is paid out of Fund 3902 Paving Improvement OPWC debt service, and these funds originate from the general fund. We issued 6 refunds totaling $600 from Fund 9901 Hall Rental Security Deposit Refund Fund, and on more recent news, we did receive some invoices from Eastlake for capital improvements to the sanitary sewers, but we will need to have separate meetings to review those and see where we go forward on that. Yes. Yes. Right. So there's it's House Bill 331. And it would be an additional path for the dissolution of a village. So currently there's three paths. I couldn't tell you offhand what they are, but the fourth one is proposed so that if you didn't outsource 5 of your major services to private non-governmental agencies, and also if you didn't have someone run for an office for each of your elections, then the county auditor would be required to, well, the county auditor would be required to review these requirements and see if you met them. And then if you didn't meet them, the Board of Elections would automatically place a question on the ballot basically for the dissolution of the village. And it passed in the House 88-3, and I'm not sure why so many people voted for it. And when I did a little bit of research on the bill, it seems that it was to address a very localized issue with a Ohio Renaissance Festival outside of a rural community. And that was the reason it was even created or legislated. And now I think it's going to the Senate. So I would urge everybody to encourage their senator to not vote for it. It's House Bill 331, I believe. I believe so. And I understand that it would still ask the voters, for their, to vote on it, but it seems an assumption to even place that without, right. Well, yeah, right, to vote no on that House bill. Right. It seems to me like nobody actually read the bill, but I could be wrong. Right. It's short. It's only 5 pages. It's only 5 pages. And then I wondered that too. We don't have a township anymore. Right, but it's gone. Yeah. And I believe it's House Bill 331. It seemed like a great assumption to me just to assume to place something like that on the ballot without getting feedback from people. Because well, a couple of the pathways are due to like mismanagement, and the other one I believe is actually where 30% of the residents actually have to request for it to be placed on the ballot. So it's, it would be a local issue, so it would be on our, yeah.
So then the village would. Okay.
Correct. So that's what they're arguing as well. It would be up to the villagers anyway. But it would be a shock to see on the ballot if you had no idea why it was there. I mean, it's. But like and the actual like language of the ballot issue, it doesn't say dissolution of the village. It says it would be vote to remove the corporate powers of this municipality. So it's not clear either. Most people have no idea what corporate powers means. So. You're welcome. It would be based on the 2030 census, so presumably they wouldn't do this evaluation until 2031. If it did pass the Senate. 88-3. Okay.
There's money somewhere for body camera grants. So I sent the email saying, we're not collaborative certified. Is this something I can check into? And I haven't gotten a response yet, but I didn't know where you were with what brand? Really? Would you check? Okay. Coyotes, they're being seen at dinner time down, especially at the other end by the playground. My guys have taken pictures of them at the playground. And one lady did flag a guy, one of our officers down to say she went outside to get her little dog and scooped him up in her yard's not fenced or anything, but she scooped him up because she thought it was a white German Shepherd. And I said, it's probably a coyote. So they're out and about. I only used to see him here along the fence early in the morning when I got here. Nobody has told me until recently that they're being seen like at dinner time. And a lot of time they're seen down at the other end of town. And that's probably why we've lost a couple of fawns, found dead in people's yards. So Now I can read this. We had 2 9/11 calls. We had 7 administrative calls, 1 alarm call, 1 animal call, 2 requests for assistance, 76 community policing, 1 harassment call, 1 hazard, 50 house checks, 2 investigations, 2 noise complaints, 3 phone complaints, 1 parking violation, 1 suspicious vehicle, 2 trespass complaints, and 1 welfare check for a total of 153 calls from Central Dispatch.
Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mrs. Morrow, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Joyce, Mrs. Joyce, Mrs. Hardwick, Mrs. Morrow, Mr. Thompson.